This is NASA Television.
Greetings from Mission Control Houston, and welcome to today's International Space Station update. You're joining us here inside of the flight control room in Houston, Texas. Orbit 2 team currently on console, monitoring a very successful day on board the International Space Station. Being led today by Flight Director Scott Stover there in the middle of your screen. As mentioned, the team overseeing a very successful day, the arrival of the Dragon, the SpaceX Dragon spacecraft on board the International Space Station. And then joining me here in Mission Control right now to give us a few words about that, NASA Associate Administrator for Human Exploration and Operations, Mr. Bill Gerstenmaier. Bill, first off, thank you so much for being in here with me today. Very exciting day, very successful day. Why don't you tell us a little bit about what we got to see this morning?
Yeah, it was really my pleasure to be down here and actually get to witness the capture and berthing of the Dragon spacecraft to the space station. Again, I was here for the demonstration flight, and I got to watch a little bit of the tension as we learned how some of the systems would actually operate and work. And then I got to see the results today of where they took the lessons learned from that previous demonstration mission, and the LiDARs, the thermal imagers, all the equipment that was needed to make this work just worked extremely smooth. I can't say enough about the crew on orbit that was really ready to go do the capture. Aki was ready to do the capture. They did it a little bit early, and it worked out really well. And the control center team here and the team out in Hawthorne and with SpaceX just did a phenomenal job of making a pretty complex ballet in space look pretty easy. And it was not easy by any stretch of the imagination, but they just did a great job, and it's great to have the Dragon spacecraft on board the space station today.
So not easy by any stretch. A lot of milestones overcome throughout the years that we've been working side by side with SpaceX. Talk about some of the milestones we had to overcome to get to this point.
Yeah, I think what's really interesting and fun for me is I get a chance to kind of step back and see the teams interact and work with each other, and the beauty is really them working together. The SpaceX team has some new creative ways of doing business that are a little different than the way we would have done business from a NASA standpoint. The NASA team gets to see that, they get to learn from that, they can actually react and implement that in their ways of doing business. The NASA team also has some ways they've been doing things along, they've learned throughout history, and then the SpaceX team sees those, and at first they may kind of reject some of those ideas. Some of the ideas for configuration control and how we monitor things and watch things is a little different than what they're used to, and they discount those initially, and then after a while they start saying, hey, this is really, now we understand what you NASA guys have been doing, and they modify their stuff a little bit together. So the beauty is, like in any teaming relationship, if you come together with an open mind and you look together and you work together and you have that common goal, you can achieve so much more as a combined team than you can individually. And I think it's just it's a real pleasure for me to get to watch the best of spaceflight come out in the SpaceX team and the best of spaceflight come out in the NASA team to end up with this wonderful event that occurred today with this capture and berthing.
So really bringing in kind of the best of both worlds, some old school NASA knowledge, some new blood from SpaceX, making this Dragon capsule successful. Really exciting stuff. So now, first commercial resupply mission, berth to the International Space Station. What does this mean for NASA? Why is this important?
Again, I think this is tremendously important. When we retired the shuttle, we needed a way to get, scientific investigations as well as necessary supplies, crew equipment, food, other things to and from space station, and we entered into the commercial orbital transportation system activity with the Space Act agreements with both Orbital and with SpaceX. Now this is the first commercial flight where we're buying essentially services to carry up things to orbit. And I think the thing we miss sometimes is the exciting cargo that is really on board this flight. There's some critical components that we needed to get launched to station. They're there. Probably the most important important thing for this flight is this will allow us to return some samples from space station. There's a glacier freezer that's on board, as well as some cold packs that are in the Dragon capsule. We have 3 -85-degree freezers on board space station. We've not returned anything from those freezers since the shuttles quit flying last year, so they're stocked full of really precious blood samples for the crew, because we're trying to monitor how the blood chemistry changes over time during an expedition. There's also biological samples in there. There's also some plant samples where we had some plants that we've fixated the plants and then we froze them in a -85-degree freezer. So these are unbelievably unique and precious specimens. You know, they've been captured. The unique presence of space station. They're locked in these frozen samples are potentially information that can reveal a lot about what microgravity is and how it works in a biological sense. So those are sitting up there. They're waiting to come home. They need a way to come home. Our freezers were starting to get full, so we're going to take approximately 1/3 of the samples that have been stored in those freezers on orbit, put them in this glacier freezer, and then get a chance to return them here to the Earth on the Dragon capsule at the end of the mission. So it's not only the upmass, but it's also given us the ability to return this precious cargo. So I look at the vision of where we were when we laid out this concept to go move forward, to bring in some commercial providers to provide services for us. There were a lot of skeptics at the beginning, but as evidenced today, I think you're starting to see that this can work and can move forward. And I think we also need to not lose sight of how difficult this is. So if a problem occurs, we just need to react to that and not lose faith in what we're doing and just continue to keep moving forward. You know, it'll be exciting to get these samples back. It'll be exciting to see some of this research actually get investigated by the folks here on the ground. And Dragon is allowing us to do that with this return portion of the flight coming up.
So really excited. I mean, science, such a huge part of the International Space Station, such an integral part. Now all those important samples have a ride back down to Earth. Talk a little bit earlier, you were telling me about some of the really cool science experiments that we have going on. Tell me a little bit about some of those.
Yeah, what's going on station is we have an aquarium, a fish habitat that was launched on the HTV, and it's been installed by Aki on board station. It's there, it's been checked out, it's ready to be operated and used. The fish are coming up on the Soyuz flight, and I was down here not only for the capture and berthing, but I was down here for the flight readiness review for the Soyuz flight. And on that Soyuz flight, we'll fly up some Makata fish that will actually inhabit the aquarium. And what's intriguing about that is we were looking at bone loss potentially with this. We've flown these fish before in space for a 16-day mission, but we've never been able to fly them for 60 or 90 days. And if you think about it, you know, humans that walk around on the Earth, we experience bone loss in space, but our systems are loaded by one gravity. You know, the bones are stressed by just walking around on the Earth. Or we fly rodents, same kind of thing. Their bones are loaded by one gravity. The fish bones are not loaded by one gravity. They're essentially swimming around in the lakes or oceans or aquariums here on the Earth. So it's much like our neutral buoyancy facility where we go simulate microgravity for our crew members. These fish experience that all the time. So now we'll fly these fish to space, put them in this habitat on board space station, and then we'll go look and see if they actually have the same bone loss phenomena that the terrestrially 1G loaded other animals have, or there's something different that goes on. And what this will do is this will allow the researchers to get more insight into the mechanism behind bone loss that occurs in space. So is it truly a one gravity loading condition? Can you compensate for it by putting the crews on treadmills and loading them with bungees, or doing the advanced resistive exercise device that they use, the ARAD? Can we accommodate that, or is there something else that's fundamentally going on? So what's exciting is these fish will give us another insight into this phenomena we observe in space, and we've really got to learn to control these things if we're going to go beyond low Earth orbit, go to asteroids, go to Mars, get out into space. We're going to be exposed to long durations of microgravity conditions, and we need to understand how to control those symptoms. So this experiment that's coming up on the Soyuz will be very important to give us some insight into bone loss we've not been able to see before. So again, it's exciting. We have to dig a little bit to see what the science is going on board space station, but there's lots of great investigations every day on board the space station.
Did they put in a little plastic castle in that fish tank for that?
I don't think there's a little plastic castle or any plastic plants in there, but you'll get a chance to see some of the video from station when the fish get.
We'll definitely be following along with it. So again, Dragon commercial resupply, getting into full swing, but SpaceX isn't our only partner in the commercial resupply. We have another partner who's moving through and well on their way to soon supplying the International Space Station, and that's Orbital.
Yep, and Orbital they're going to launch out of Wallops, Virginia, and Wallops Island, Virginia. They're out on the launch pad now. They've just moved the rocket out last week, and they lifted it up and installed it on the launch pad. They had to build essentially a launch pad from scratch. There was no launch pad for this rocket before, so they had to put in not only the cement infrastructure and the facility that holds the rockets, but they had to put in a propellant system that can handle cryogenic oxygen and kerosene to deliver it to the rocket. Also, there's some helium that needs to be supplied, etc. So there was a lot of buildup of the launch
really
pad,
just ground up,
building it from essentially open beach to essentially a launch pad. So they've been very busy getting that in place. There's been some, typical problems as they check things out. Valves don't quite function right. Systems leak a little bit. Some flanges needed to be retorqued. So they've been working through all those problems. But now they're at the point where the rocket is out on the launch pad. They'll do some fueling demonstrations. I think they start around the 20th of this month, so probably about 10 days from now. And what they'll do there is they'll actually fuel the rocket 3 times to make sure they can really understand how it gets fueled, to get all the precise timing down to get ready for the launch. Then they'll do a hot fire test after that completes, and that'll verify that the hold down system works, the launch countdown software works, all those things work. And then they'll do a launch probably later this year, probably sometime in December, that will launch with a dummy Cygnus capsule on top. It'll be just to check out the launch system to make sure the rocket can operate, and we'll get to see that. And then they'll do their demonstration to station sometime next year in 2013. So again, I think they're making good progress. Lots of challenges as things seem mundane, but to deliver minus 420 some degrees Fahrenheit oxygen at the right conditions, and by right conditions, right pressure and flow rates and all these things, is not a trivial experiment at all. It's not trivial to get the launch pad
still
ready.
Rocket science.
It's still rocket science, and they'll work through those things. So we'll see how these demonstrations and fill tests go over the next couple of weeks. But again, they're making good, solid progress and moving forward. They've got several rockets already at Wallops that are ready to go. They've got a couple Cygnus capsules that are there. So I think once they get through this kind of startup stuff, they'll be ready to go ahead and deliver cargo to station, which will be, again, another way to really effectively utilize station. And we really designed it that we need both of these companies. We can't do it just with SpaceX alone. We need both the cargo delivered by Orbital and by SpaceX to make station functional and get the research that we intended. So we're looking again for them coming online as soon as they're ready to come online. And again, I get to see the same NASA teams, maybe different teams, working with these folks, helping out up with the Orbital team. I've been seeing it where a lot of our folks from Kennedy and Marshall and Stennis, who have experience in launch pads and launch design, we ship those up to Wallops, and they've been helping the Orbital team. They've actually worked with them hand in hand, done some test conducting with them as they do it through tests, teaching them how to operate and do things. So again, I'm seeing the NASA team take the newer teams and give them some experience, help them along over through some of the rough spots, be encouraging, but then I also get to see my team get excited and invigorated about a new way of doing business that they've not had a chance to experience. So again, that teaming relationship I described with SpaceX, that same teaming relationship is alive and well with Orbital, and it's a tremendous thing for me to get to see that drive, that pull of spaceflight, that wanting to go beyond low Earth orbit, to understand what we can do with space station, to understand those research questions. To see these teams get united by that passion and move forward is a tremendous blessing for me to get to see these teams work together.
Really fascinating to see the synergies between the two teams and really spreading the knowledge out, getting as many people involved in spaceflight as we possibly can. Really exciting stuff. So, successful Dragon today. Anything else you'd like to say real quick?
Not really. Again, I think, spend the time understanding what's going on with space station. I think here in the next couple days, there's some good passes of station going overhead, especially in the U.S. in Houston and also on the East Coast. So if you get a chance, go outside and watch this little white dot go overhead. I tell people that you also have to have a picture of the crew, so you need a picture of Yuri and Aki and Sunny, so you can show your friends that these 3 people are in that little white dot up there, right? And there they go across the sky. So I think, and also spend a little bit of time, go out to the web, research a little bit, find out what the research is we're doing today on space station, and then then figure out a way to talk to your neighbors and friends about what that research is and how that research affects their lives. And so use that little white dot going overhead that you see to essentially maybe talk to your friends and neighbors about what you're doing and what excitement you see in the space program. So again, my only thought for the day is the weather's been good here in Houston, so if you get a chance, especially tonight or tomorrow night, get a chance to get out there and take a look and see this marvelous thing that flies overhead.
Absolutely, and it is amazing to see it too when you see it streaking across the sky and just thinking there are people living on that. It's been up there for 10 years. It's this modern marvel. It really is inspiring.
Yep, and you can even say there's a Dragon capsule attached
and
to that.
And there's a Dragon account. Yep.
Yep. All
right, well, Bill, thank you so much for being here today. Again, Bill Gerstenmaier, Associate Administrator for Human Exploration and Operations. Very successful day. It's been an honor.
Okay, well, thank you very much.
All right, thanks.
Thanks.
The International Space Station right now, just a little bit over the northern border of Mongolia, currently at an altitude of about 259 statute miles over the Earth's surface. As we were just talking about, a very successful day in station operations. The SpaceX Dragon spacecraft successfully docked to the International Space Station. Here we can see NASA astronaut and Expedition 33 Commander Sunny Williams as she and Japanese astronaut Aki Hoshide are working to prepare to open the hatch into the Dragon spacecraft, wasting no time getting this ready.
And Houston Station on 2, as you can see from the camera view, the 2-meter hatch is opened. And looking at the latch that you mentioned, it looks like even just similar to the others. And Sunny's taking pictures so that you guys can take a look at it too.
We copy. Thanks very much for the pictures.
Okay, also we don't see any condensate.
Copy, thanks very much.
And Houston, we'll give you a G1 camcorder tour of the latches.
We're watching. That's great. Thank you.
And the first one is the starboard aft latch.
Okay, copy.
And this is the port aft latch.
Copy.
Here's the port forward latch.
Got it.
And last but not least, the starboard forward latch, my favorite.
Okay, we got that one too. Thanks again for the video and the pictures.
You bet.
This is Mission Control Houston. Very successful day of robotic and visiting vehicle operations today with the International Space Station. SpaceX Dragon capsule was successfully grappled and berthed to its port on the Earth-facing side of the Harmony module. You can see the Dragon spacecraft here at its home, now connected to the International Space Station. Two of our astronauts on board, Sonny Williams and Aki Hoshide, working to finish all the pressurization and leak checks before they open up the hatch and go inside to begin unloading some of the cargo. It was grappled earlier this morning at 5:56 a.m. Central Time using the space station's robotic arm. We have a few clips of that, again taken from a little bit earlier this morning. Sonny Williams and Aki Hoshide were at the robotic controls throughout the entire morning as they watched Dragon on its final approach. They also had a crew command panel as they were inside of the cupola. Here you can see Sonny Williams using one of the station's cameras on board to photograph the spacecraft as it was in its final approach. It executed a number of stop and hold points throughout as teams did final go, no-goes for during its approach. Here you can see that space station robotic arm reaching out to grapple with the spacecraft. At this point, it was only about 10 meters away from the International Space Station when the crew members received the final go. Here, Williams and Hoshide at the robotic controls as they move the arm slowly out to grapple with the Dragon. As mentioned, that capture occurred at just around 5:56 a.m. Central Time this morning. Following that, crews down here in Mission Control maneuvered it into its final docking orientation before Williams and Hoshide took over the controls once more on board the International Space Station. to maneuver the Dragon into position and berth it to the Harmony module. The capsule being securely bolted at 8:03 a.m. Central Time. Following this, the hatch and the vestibule between the two spacecraft underwent a series of leak checks and other final checkouts before our astronauts will be able to open up the hatch and begin removing the cargo inside. That happening right now, but here getting a really good shot now of the Dragon spacecraft as it was berthed to the International Space Station. It was just a few hundred miles over the Pacific Ocean just west of Baja, California. Here we see Sunny Williams continuing to work to prepare that hatchway for its initial opening. We're looking inside of the Harmony module as NASA astronaut Sunny Williams continues to prepare the Dragon spacecraft for its initial opening. She called down with some words of congratulations once they successfully berthed the spacecraft to the station. Why don't we take a listen to that now?
And just a couple mentions, if you don't mind, if we have time. I know you guys probably handed over already, but we just wanted to say thanks now that we have another module addition to our space station. Thanks to the SpaceX CRS-1 team there in Houston, led by Ron Spencer. Specifically, a couple names to mention: ICE, Paul Brower, VVO, Sean O'Rourke, Robo Lead, Melanie Miller, STL, who really trained all the flight controllers, Zach Jones, and then the team of Robot, who has given us this great simulator up here to practice every day and every other day and every minute. So Greg Alexander, David Ciferati, and Daniel Miller, a big thanks to you guys for helping us out. One more VVO who's been part of our office practically for as long as I can remember is Tux, who's got us all squared away and made sure we knew what the vehicle's doing the whole way up here. So thanks, big time thanks. And one last thanks, of course, to the SpaceX team there in Houston and Hawthorne, and all the team that's led by the mission director lead, John Couliris. You guys put together a great vehicle. We're just really happy that she's part of ISS right now, and we can't wait to open the hatch. So we'll talk to you when that happens. Thanks again for everybody.
Thanks very much, Sunny. It was phenomenal to watch you. Great job, and we would echo your thanks to the entire SpaceX CRS-1 team. Great work today.
Then again, some words called down by NASA astronaut and Expedition 33 Commander Sunny Williams following the successful berthing of the SpaceX capsule to the International Space Station. And this is Mission Control Houston. Again today, the Orbit 2 team currently on console being led by Flight Director Scott Stover. He's there in the white shirt and being joined at the Capcom position, serving as the communications link between the astronauts up in space and the controllers down here on the ground, is Kate Rubens, there over on the left side. Those astronauts very busy today on board right now. The crew of Expedition 33 being led by NASA astronaut Sunny Williams all the way over there on the left. In the middle, she's joined by Russian cosmonaut Yuri Malenchenko, and then all the way on the right, Japan Aerospace Exploration Agency astronaut Aki Hoshide. The crew's very busy today with that successful docking of the SpaceX capsule. It was grappled with the space station's robotic arm earlier this morning at 5:56 a.m. Central Time. The crew then got a little bit ahead of schedule and managed to berth it to the International Space Station at 8:03 a.m. Central. This being SpaceX's first commercial resupply mission to the International Space Station, which launched back on Sunday from the Cape Canaveral Air Force Station, delivering a total of 882 pounds of supplies to this orbiting laboratory, including over 390 pounds of scientific research equipment. Meanwhile, on board the station, Sunny Williams began her day doing a quick checkout and routing some cables for the crew command panel, which she used throughout the final SpaceX approach to maintain communication with the vehicle, and also the ability to send commands both during this berthing and then later on during the departure phase. She was also monitoring the Dragon spacecraft throughout its entire approach and then capturing it with the space station robotic arm. Following that, she sat back for a few moments along with Aki Hoshide while ground robotics controllers maneuvered the spacecraft into its pre-installed position before finally taking back over and then berthing the Dragon spacecraft. Here we can see her doing what will take up much of the rest of her day, preparing the hatchway in the Harmony module for its initial opening before the astronauts can enter inside and start unloading some of that cargo. She's joined right now by Japanese astronaut Aki Hoshide, who was working in tandem with Williams throughout many of these activities throughout the day, also taking the reins at the robotic arm controls for some of the operations and helping to monitor the spacecraft throughout its entire approach. He's also been doing a lot of work on the vestibule and the connection between these two spacecraft, the Dragon and the International Space Station, and he'll continue to work on that throughout the rest of the day. Then our third Expedition 33 crew member, Russian cosmonaut Yuri Malenchenko, has been doing a few research experiments on board in the Russian segment. He spent a few hours today working on the Typologia experiment, which is a Russian assessment of the mental state and the prediction and correction of quality of work of these astronauts, basically just to look into how their cognitive functions are affected by long-duration spaceflight. They go through a series of exercises made to test out those functions. There's also continuing some work he's been doing on the Kolonovsky crystal experiment, something he started yesterday. It's research into microscopic particles being suspended in an electromagnetic trap. So a pretty complex physics experiment, one of many of a suite of physics experiments taking advantage of that microgravity environment of the International Space Station. He's also doing some pre-pack work for a Freon leak analyzer, which will be returned on this Dragon spacecraft, part of the over 1,600 pounds of supplies it'll be bringing back down to the Earth's surface. He's also doing some measurements of harmful contaminants using the countermeasure system inside of the Russian Zvezda service module. Just some of the routine replacement work also on the toilet will take up some of his time later in the afternoon. But again, all eyes on this successful capture and berthing of the Dragon spacecraft. The station configuration, as you can see now, with the Dragon all the way on the left there, docked to the Earth-facing side of Harmony. The other two vehicles, which have been on attached to station for some time, the Soyuz 31 craft, which carried these two astronauts to the International Space Station back in July, and also the Progress 48, the unmanned Russian cargo ship, also a robotic spacecraft supplying cargo to the crew of Expedition 33. So continuing to look inside of the Harmony module is NASA astronaut Sonny Williams and Japanese astronaut Aki Hoshide. Continue to work on this nadir or Earth-facing port of Harmony, where the SpaceX Dragon capsule is currently docked. They're working to remove some of the common berthing mechanism items on this hatchway, pressing towards an early open of the hatch as soon as possible, looking to get it done hopefully before this afternoon. The sooner they get this hatch open, the sooner they can begin unloading the over 800 pounds of cargo being delivered to the International Space Station. Among that includes over 260 pounds of crew supplies, generally items like clothing and food for these expedition crews. Also has about 390 pounds of scientific research equipment meant to support experiments in plant cell biology, human biotechnology, and also various materials technology demonstrations. Also carrying up 225 pounds of generic station hardware, usually a few spares for life support systems and also other items just to keep the station running in tip-top order. And then several pounds of other miscellaneous supplies also packed on board of the Dragon spacecraft. However, possibly one of Dragon's most important roles will be its ability to bring items back down to the ground. Associate Administrator of Human Exploration and Operations, Bill Gerstenmaier, was discussing that importance with us a little bit earlier in today's show, telling us about some of the items stored inside the freezers on board the International Space Station, which haven't had a trip back down to the planet since the retirement of the NASA space shuttle. So Dragon providing that invaluable ability to return scientific research items such as biological samples and also plant samples or any other items stored inside of those freezers. It'll be returning with almost twice what it came up to the station with, coming back with about 1,670 pounds of supplies. Among that will be 866 pounds, so the lion's share of scientific research items. This is such an important task for the spacecraft, as many of the ongoing research studies on board station can't really complete or begin gathering data until these samples are returned back down to Earth for researchers to take a look at in labs down here on the Earth's surface. So Dragon really providing a very vital piece to the utilization and continuing science that's happening on board the International Space Station. So Expedition 33 crew members Sonny Williams and Aki Hoshide continuing to work on the Earth-facing side of the Harmony module here as they continue to prep that port for its initial opening so they can enter into the SpaceX Dragon spacecraft, which just docked a few hours ago this morning. On its final approach, the Dragon capsule first passed into the 250-meter hold position, which is just outside of what's known as the keep-out sphere of the International Space Station. After getting the final go at that point, it continued on its approach, stopping again at a 30-meter hold point, once again giving teams here in Mission Control Houston and out at SpaceX Mission Control in Hawthorne, California, a chance to ensure all the systems were functioning as they should before giving one final go, moving it into the 10-meter position where its final hold was done, and then positioning it for capture. The two crew members seen here, Sonny Williams and Aki Hoshide, at the robotic controls on board the International Space Station, reached out with the station's Canada Arm 2, or the Space Station robotic arm, and then at about 5:56 a.m. Central Time, they successfully grappled with that SpaceX craft. And then following that, the robotics controllers down here on the ground maneuvered it into its final docking position before the astronauts on board again taking control and guiding it into the Earth-facing port of the Harmony module. That berthing taking place at about 8:03 a.m. Central Time today, successfully bringing SpaceX's first commercial resupply mission to the International Space Station. Current station structure and all the visiting vehicles seen here. Dragon all the way over on the left there, again on the Earth-facing side of Harmony. One of 3 vehicles currently docked to the International Space Station. We're continuing to look over the shoulders of Expedition 33 Commander Sonny Williams and Flight Engineer Aki Hoshide as they continue to work on this hatchway of the Harmony module, working to remove some of the components of the common berthing mechanism before they can eventually open up the hatchway and enter into the Dragon capsule, which was just berthed to the International Space Station a few hours ago at about 8:03 a.m. Central Time. Getting a pretty fantastic view of Dragon here as the station passes over the Pacific Ocean. It's currently about 260 miles over the southern Pacific, heading southeasterly, and will cross over the very southern tip of Chile and Argentina before moving out over the Atlantic Ocean. Dragon, the first full-up commercial resupply mission to the International Space Station. Designated SpaceX CRS-1, this flight delivering a total of 882 pounds to the orbiting laboratory. It'll remain on board, attached to the station for about 18 days while the crew offloads all the cargo on board and also moves in the 1,600 pounds of supplies that'll be returning as the Dragon enters through the Earth's atmosphere and splashes down in the Pacific Ocean for a return back down to Earth. Our third crew member not seen here on board the International Space Station, Yuri Malenchenko, is getting one such item ready. It's a Freon leak analyzer. We returned back down with a number of other items on board the Dragon spacecraft. About 500 pounds of vehicle hardware, including this leak analyzer, will be returned back down on Dragon for engineers to take a look at back down here on the ground. Many of these items are failed spares or also miscellaneous items that researchers down here on the ground want to take a look at. So that'll comprise just under a third of the supplies that Dragon will bringing back down. The bulk of items, over half, will be scientific research items, including samples from inside many of the cryogenic freezers found on board station. There are also other larger items that haven't been able to come back down on the Russian Soyuz craft, which is a crew craft, has very limited space for bringing back down any research items as it returns to the Earth's surface.
Houston Station on 2 for Vespa outfit, just to let you know, all 4 CPAs are removed. We're going to tuck the cables and secure it after we remove the center disc cover.
Okay, we copy all 4 removed, and that you'll secure it after the center disc cover. Thanks, Aki.
Aki Hoshide calling down as they continue to remove some of the items from the common berthing mechanism so they can open up this hatchway to the Dragon spacecraft. They're hoping to have that done before early afternoon today so they can get inside and start unloading that cargo as soon as possible. For now, we'll have a few programming notes for you for items coming up soon on NASA TV. Tomorrow morning, we'll have an in-flight event with our crew members speaking to some reporters and the like down here on the ground. That'll be live here on NASA TV at 9:25 a.m. Central Time, 10:25 a.m. Eastern Time. And as always, be sure to check out the NASA video file immediately following today's broadcast, starting at 11 a.m. Central Time, 12 p.m. Eastern. So successful docking of the SpaceX Dragon capsule to the International Space Station. Very successful day on orbit for this crew. Be sure to check out those events tomorrow, and we'll return with more International Space Station update. For now, we'll go ahead and sign off. This is Mission Control Houston.